Okay, this lecture is dealing with how we experience the three dimensions. As you can see here, there's a picture on the right of a superhero. You folks probably all know who that is. But we can tell it's a computer-generated two-dimensional image. We can see the radiation of energy out the back that gives us a sense of his power. We can see the volume of those muscles, but that's all done on a flat surface. David, on the other hand, on the right, we can sense sort of the same thing, except that we can tell he's real. And we can tell that because in our culture, we see photographs all the time, and we know that this is a real object. If we were in the museum in front of this, we could potentially walk up when the guards weren't looking, touch the base and feel the cold marble, how smooth it was, how some artist's hand smoothed and sanded this thing until it was, well, you can see by the reflection of the light on the arm that it is extremely smooth. If we could walk around it, we could gauge, is it human scale? Is it a little bit smaller? We could see almost infinite views of masses, volumes, negative spaces, silhouettes, and just get a real sense of this real thing. Okay, and so what are those dimensions? We've got height, how tall it is. We've got width and depth. Depth is from the front of the piece, the part that's closest to you, to the back of the piece, farthest away from you. This is a funny picture to me because it looks like, it almost looks like a drawing, that clear blue sky and those crisp edges. I'm not so sure it hasn't been photoshopped. But anyway, we'll talk about some of the issues with photographs in a few minutes. But this thing, it sort of looks like a toy as it is, and I'm going to guess it's between 100 and 150 feet easily. Here we are again, something a little more human scale, a little more our scale. This is a stone carving of a woman, reclining woman. This is a kind of the ultimate experience in 3D for me is architecture, because you can walk inside of it, you can participate in it, you can go on stairs or go down in the basement or whatever. And in this case, in this 7-star luxury hotel in United Arab Emirates, which I spelled wrong, here's a couple of views you might see before you would go in. The one on the left, you're on the beach in front of another luxury hotel, which you can see on the right there, kind of in the middle. See that beach there? That's somebody took the picture from there. In that right-hand photo, you can see way over on the right here is a road going over to this little man-made island. This thing is on like 120 foot pillars down into the ocean floor. You also might notice over on the left here, you can kind of get a sense of the coating. There's a Teflon coating on the outside of this hotel that when sunset hits it, it just glows with warm colors. It's supposed to be pretty spectacular. Anyway, that's two directions, two views on how we might experience this hotel. Here's another one. This is the atrium of the world's tallest hotel, or tallest atrium anyway. It's 600 feet tall, 60 floors. And while you're up here on the top, you're probably just coming out of the restaurant, the tallest restaurant in a hotel in the world. And don't you love olives and repeated patterns and colors, etc. It's pretty fun. But if you wanted to eat lunch, not where you had dinner last night, maybe you would go down here. You take a submarine to go down under the water, and you can have your bouillabaisse sitting right there next to some of the fish that maybe are in your soup right out on the side here. You can see all these live fish. So 4 different views of the same place. And just there's kind of like everybody's memory of a place. Everybody's got kind of a favorite memory or something that really sticks out for them. It's the same way for photographers. You know, they might put forward a view that for them is the epitome of what this place or this experience, this 3D thing is. It might not be for you. In this case, so we're going to be looking at a little bit of these problems with photography. And that is just that. Sometimes you just have one selected point of view. This down below is the same piece. This on the right is the way that this is photographed often, because it is such a dynamic, forceful, I mean, you just have a sense that this is somebody, I mean, because of the little cross up here on the guy's face, I imagine this to be a crusader or something like that. Anyway, it's a very energetic piece. The image on the left is the front view, and you still get a sense. Look at the muscles on the thigh, etc. You get an idea that this is a very strong, probably figurative piece, but it isn't all that natural to think, oh, well, that's the same piece. You might think it's another piece by the same artist. But there again, which view do you take if you only get one shot of showing people? A little bit more architecture here. This is the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. You see this beautiful iconic building, but you don't get a sense of that right across the street is Central Park. So this is probably one of those buildings where you could get a vantage point from quite far away and walk closer to it, and which is probably pretty rare in a large city. You also don't get a sense, this big monolith behind here is also part of the museum. It's a more contemporary part. You can see how they took little elements from the original building and put them up into the new building, which is kind of a nice contrast. But anyway, we don't get a sense of how those really fit together. So here's the Guggenheim. And here's the Guggenheim. This is taken from inside. One of the other problems is that sometimes photography flattens things out. So we don't really get a sense that this is a 7-story building, and it's a huge arced glass-covered dome on top. It looks pretty flat. It's a neat photograph, but we don't really get a sense of what that museum really looks like. Here's another shot. Explains a little bit more. Oh, then we've got a wide-angle lens down below, which distorts things a little bit more. So as you can see, there are some issues with photography here. But sometimes it's our only way to travel to the Guggenheim Museum. Whoops, wrong way. Okay, another issue is sort of something I referred to before, the photographer's interpretation. So the image on the left here is what you would see if you walked into a museum where this piece is displayed. It's a beautiful, sleek piece. It's called Bird in Space. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of think, well, yeah, it's kind of bird shaped. It's kind of feather shaped. I can see some sort of imagery with flight. It's very sleek, the way I might think about birds. But in reality, this image on the right here is how the artist, Brancusi, actually wanted this piece to be seen. For him, it was about that energy and that flash of recognition that a bird just zipped by you, kind of like the hummingbirds do sometimes when you're sitting outside. So he's in a darkened room, somebody flashes a light, or he's got a flash on the camera, whatever it is, and it's just that burst of energy, that flash, that kind of surprise. And that's how he really wanted this piece to be seen. But we are left with this one over here, which is lovely, but I really love the whole idea of this one over here. There's also a confusion of scale sometimes. We talked about that with that tower, that Middle Eastern tower we saw in the beginning. This is called dwelling, and as you can see, there's this little Pueblo village here. The bricks on this are only a ½ inch long, whereas these real bricks here are, well, they're normally around 7 inches. These look a little longer. But this artist, Charles Symons, would go around New York City, find these dilapidated walls, and construct little clay villages inside the crevices. Pretty cool idea. Until they got destroyed by the neighborhood kids, or a snowstorm came and melted it all down. But let's see here. The next shot, this is a place where one of those other pueblos is constructed. So you kind of get a sense of the scale again of what this would be like. What a wonderful surprise to be walking down the street and come across this little Lilliputian village. Here's the real Pueblo at Mesa Verde National Park. It really, it kind of looks the same as Charles Symons, but if you knew the area and knew that under these mesas were these huge caverns, these huge sandstone caverns, I mean, this is acres large. These are huge. People lived in these. But that there again, you really don't get a real sense unless you kind of know what these caverns look like. Here's another one. Here's a little vase, or is it? Actually, this is a huge bronze. It's over 13 feet tall. I mean, and then with the base down there, I mean, it towers above you. It's kind of spectacular. Every time I see it, I kind of wonder what the heck they would put in there, or maybe they were never planning on putting anything in there. But it's encrusted with angels and vines, and it's kind of a wonderful piece. Lavinia, the vine. And sometimes the photo is all we have of the artwork. This is the lightning field in New Mexico. It is a site-specific installation. Or I guess I should say, at this point, it's not really just an installation. This is a permanent installation. Most installations are temporary. Ideally, they are made for a specific site. And let's see what else. Anyway, you can see there, this one's kind of cool. It's, I forget how many, there's like 200 of these 20-foot stainless steel poles out in this section of Arizona and New Mexico where the most electrical storm activity has been noted. And so he was able to put up these grids, and whenever any of these electrical storms would happen, the lightning would come down and zip over to whatever the closest or most convenient pole would be. And so we experience this probably not by going out there too often in the middle of a lightning storm, because that would probably be fairly terrifying, but some intrepid photographer went out and we are left with remarkable images like this. So this is sort of almost the only way that we experience this thing. Here's another one. Andy Goldsworthy work is also an ecological